Jarryd James, welcome to Australian Musician.
Thank you.
We're chatting because you've got a new album coming out, but before we chat about that, I wanted to get a bit of background and go way back. What were the artists and the albums that got you through your teens?
My teens. So, I listened to a lot of Stevie Wonder, Bob Dylan. I was kind of like into the stuff that my parents sort of had lying around, and it was a weird time because it was like the late 90s. So I hadn't really discovered 90s R&B so much yet, other than what I heard on the radio, because I grew up in a little rural town in Queensland. It wasn't until later that I realised how cool that stuff was. But everyone else in my town listened to stuff that I hated. Hate's a strong word, I shouldn't say that. But it was stuff like Metallica and Sepultura, and just things that I heard and I'm like, it's not really for me. But I was more attracted to melodies and like nice stuff, like prettier sort of stuff, I think.
So, did you learn an instrument when you were younger?
I did, yeah. I grew up playing the trumpet from a pretty young age, and that gave me a good little foundation of just music, like melody in general. And then I just started picking things up as I realised like I can do whatever I want. I may as well put my time. I had a lot of spare time on my hands, so living in a small town, so I had a guitar lying around and I just figured out how to play it. And then we had a piano, so I just figured that one out as well. Just learning to figure it out by ear. Yeah.
You're pretty good at figuring things out. I was looking at the figures on your single "Do You Remember," and it's quite ridiculous how many views on YouTube. And
yeah, right. I haven't looked in a while.
Yeah. At what point did you start to think this is getting a bit nuts?
There was kind of a hot second there in, I think it was like 2015 when I first put that song out. But do you remember? I think it had kind of it took off online, which I really liked that happened because it was that's true, you know, like there was no one pushing it or anything. There was no one, not even me, like trying to push it. It was just, it existed and people liked it and they shared it with each other. And I think when it started, we put it on SoundCloud, and when it started getting some serious streams on there and showed up on Hype Machine or something like that, and went up to like number one on the however that works, the aggregate thing. That was one of those moments, I think, where I was like, "Wow, people dig this," and that was a nice feeling.
Yeah. So when things did start to happen, were you able to enjoy the moment, or was it a bit confronting as well?
Bit of both, I think. The nature of those sorts of things, I think you were able to enjoy it more in hindsight, because at the time, I overthink things way too much, and so at the time I think I was like trying to monitor what I was doing a little bit too much and make sure I wasn't doing stuff that I was going to look back on and not be proud of. And so it's like a little bit of both, to be honest.
So now you've got your second album coming out.
Yeah.
Did you have a definite idea of the direction you wanted it to go in, or was it more of an organic thing?
Not like definite, but I knew that I wanted to make it more in the R&B sort of corner as far as the production and how I was singing my melodies and stuff. But at the same time, I wanted to experiment as much as possible without being too like crazy, because I'm not a crazy guy. I'm pretty low key, so I think I've found a nice little middle ground of all that stuff.
What kind of things did you learn from making 31 that you took into this album?
I don't know. I guess just that like most people, like I just wanted to be maybe a little bit more thoughtful and selective about what I do put on there, and not at all. I'm so proud of that album, and I'm still so happy with how it turned out. But that's just the nature of second albums, I guess. You have a look at what you did the first time round, and you try and fine-tune it a bit more, I think.
You've collaborated with a lot of people on this new album.
Yeah.
Tell me about some of the partners in crime this time around.
Yeah. Some of them I worked with on the last album as well. So Mr. Joel Little, who's become a really good mate of mine, one of the best humans on the planet. And we have a couple tracks on the album. A couple that we did in LA, and then one that we did in New Zealand. I think we started one in LA. Anyway, doesn't matter. I worked with Malay again, who is one of my favourite collaborators. Clams Casino, really great producer from Jersey. Did a track with Andrew Wyatt of Mike Snow. Did a song with M Phases, another Aussie, which is the single I just put out a little while back. I think that's all of them. I hope I'm not forgetting someone. Jeez.
Let It Go is the current single with M Phases. What is it about him that made you want to work with him?
You know what? I was on a writing trip in Nicaragua that Joel had curated. And he'd invited me, and he invited Mark and a bunch of other friends of ours. And I was just paired up with him one day. I think it was probably Joel that went, I reckon you two could make something cool. And I think he was right. So I'd never met him before that. So it's definitely an unusual environment to just jump in a room with someone you never met and try and make something. But I think we nailed it. It was a good day.
So what sort of songwriting tools did you have with you?
Oh man, we had the shittiest microphone in the world. I think it was made out of plastic, and it was picking up all of the noise, because I sing quite softly on that track. We had to gain it up a lot, and there's these howler monkeys in that part of the world, and they're very loud. They get very excited. So I've told the story a few times, but it's basically, if you were to solo any of the audio recordings, you'd hear monkeys all day.
Did they howl in tune at least?
No. No, we had to, M Phases had to be a little bit creative with how we treated, especially the vocal on that one, to try and filter them out a little bit. But no, it was really bare bones. We had these tiny little monitors. I think they were 4 inch, maybe even less, 3 or 4 inch monitors, and a couple of pairs of headphones and a microphone, and a bass guitar, and we had to improvise, which I think is one of the reasons that it turned out so cool, and I ended up putting it on the album.
You're calling it PM, the album?
Yeah.
Why did you arrive at that title?
In the last few years, I spend most of my waking hours at nighttime. I feel a lot more productive when the sun's down. In fact, that Let It Go song is probably the only one of maybe 2 songs of the album that were made with any daylight around. And I think that is reflected in the way it all sounds. I can't really sing in the morning so well. My voice has always sounded better at nighttime, and my ideas flow better at nighttime. I still don't even know what PM actually stands for. I think it's Latin or something.
When you find out, let me know.
Yeah.
Is there a track on the album that's closer to your heart than others?
Yeah, there's this song called Overdue, which I made probably like maybe even more than 2 years ago, maybe about 2 years ago with Malay. We were in New York working in a studio called Germano. And yeah, it's kind of like I was feeling really weird because I spent a lot of time in LA by myself, and it just got me feeling really unusual and extra thoughtful, I guess, because LA's a weird place to be alone. And again, like when you're existing in nighttime, it's even weirder. It's like steps another level up of weirdness, of just the way you feel. And yeah, that kind of led into writing this piece of music about my mostly hate relationship with Los Angeles. But it's perfect because it's one of those rare moments where I was actually able to articulate in my own way what I was feeling. So,
How's your cut-off valve? Do you know when? How do you know when a song or an album is finished?
It doesn't always work. It's not always working. I don't know if there's really any rules to that for me. It's just sometimes I do have to just go, no, I can't. I got to stop trying to perfect this. It's already really cool, and stop second guessing. But, I think I normally just have a sense that, like, yeah, that's like, if I listen to it without really listening, if I just put it on, I'm like, yeah, that feels right. Like, it feels like a song. I'll just know. So, yeah.
I was looking at your Facebook page, and there's a photo of your studio. There's a couple of nice guitars there I saw. Tell me about those.
Oh yeah, you probably would have seen. And also, studio is a very, very generous term for that. It's literally just on my dining room table, just put all my stuff there. I've got a weird story. In 2010, me and my mates that I was playing in a band with went to Afghanistan to play for the troops. And we spent some time in Dubai, and I bought there's like a cherry red Hofner. It's like a very thin, I think it's called. And I bought it at the Dubai Mall at a music store. It was super weird, but I like it. It's got weird little bits of character. And the other one that you probably saw is a 1978 Fender Music Master, which is like I bought that in Brooklyn at this, it's called Southside Guitar store in Brooklyn. They only really sell vintage stuff, like really cool stuff. Yeah, I bought that on a trip once, and I was looking for it's like a 3/4 scale. It's basically a Mustang, I think. You probably know. And yeah, they slapped a bass neck on it and some bass strings, and there you go, you got a bass. But I like it because it's easier to work around, and like it's really great for coming up with ideas for the vibe of the track. Yeah, I take it to most of my sessions now.
And what's on your laptop? What software are you using?
I use Logic. Yeah, I started with Pro Tools, but I'm not smart enough to. There's probably people that think that's a silly thing to say, but Logic just seems to be a bit more intuitive for my kind of brain. Yeah.
Are there specific packages that you use for your beats?
I use. I have an Apollo, a Universal Audio Apollo like interface, a quad, and so I use a lot of their plugins. But then I use a lot of the Native Instruments stuff. I use Reason. What's the thing? I've blanked on what the program's called. Yeah, I use just a lot of the usual suspects, a lot of the Waves stuff. Every now and then I'll go for a search on like just obscure little plugins that can make stuff sound a little bit more like old school vibe, like a little bit warmer or something. Yeah, I'm a sucker for like these ads have started popping up on my Instagram feed because of the stuff that I look up, and it's just all these plugins things, and I end up buying these weird like chord generators and stuff like that. So, yeah.
So you just figured out how to do all that?
Yeah.
YouTube tutorials, that sort of thing?
A little bit of YouTube, well, a lot of YouTube, but I think the main way I've learned is just I've been very lucky to be in the studio with people that know their shit, and watching them is priceless. You know, people like Joel and people like Malay, and just watching their process. And I don't half the time I don't know what the button or the dial does, but I've watched people that know what they're doing, and I hear how it sounds when they do it. So it's a lot of like assimilation of their skills, I guess. Is that the right word? I don't know. It rubs off. Yeah.
When did you first realise that you could use your voice in that high register as an instrument?
When I was young, like I said before, I listened to a lot of Stevie Wonder, especially when he was younger. I don't know if you're familiar with his earlier years, but he sang so high when he used to play a lot of harmonica, and his voice was just crazy high, like, and he could sing, man, like, still can. But I used to just try and match it, you know, and that, I guess, trained my voice without me realizing. Not that I'm anywhere near that kind of thing, but that's probably how it happened, I think.
What's the grand plan for Jarryd James?
I don't know. The grand plan, honestly, now that I think about it, is just I'm always trying to write a bit of music, like trying to make stuff that I'm going to be proud of for the rest of my life, and that makes my friends proud. So most of my friends are also musicians, and it's always a bit of a thing in my head of like, I've got to make sure that my mates love this stuff too. Like, I've got to make them proud of me. So that's really it. I like to live a simple life. Don't really have any desires to be anything other than what I am now, but I am just genuinely stoked when people like my music. So that's really all.